learning process or experiential learning need to be discussed today. And from that point onwards, we are discussing the rest of the things. Right. So what is this Kolb learning, experiential learning model? It has basically, Kolb is a name. I can't remember the first name. I think David Kolb or something. Kolb proposed four basic options or ways by which an individual can have experiential learning, right? So basically, those four steps are explained here in this slide. One is concrete experience. What is concrete experience? Concrete experience means an intuitive preference for learning through direct experience, emphasizing interpersonal relations and feeling as opposed to thinking. Basically, concrete experience is something when we are learning on something, we need to have the direct experience on the learning thing. In other words, suppose you, which means that you need to practice it, in other words, right? So whatever the thing that you are learning in a particular situation need to be experienced, which means that you need to make it practicable, or in other words, experiential, in other words, right? So if you are learning a particular theory, the underlying principles of that theory need to be experienced, can be practiced, right? So that is the experience. Then the second one is abstract conceptualization. The preference for learning by thinking about an issue in a theoretical terms, right? So now what you need to do is you need to relate the thing learning to a particular theory. So how it is happening, why it is happening, right? That is abstract conceptualization. The thing that you are learning can be conceptualized, right? So which means that you are learning something, and for example, you are learning, let's say, by using five senses, right? So learning using five senses. For example, when you are participating into a lecture, you simply write what the lecturer delivers, or what the lecturer speaks about. All right. So in that sense, obviously, you need to think about the ways how simply you are thinking about the sensory stimulation theory. So which will be talked about later on. Uh, so in that, basically, sensory stimulation theory highlights the postulates the importance of activating all the five senses in a learning activity. So then obviously the sensory stimulation theory guides your behavior. Now in a learning activity, you are writing what that for example, let's say you are learning this slide, for example, or you are learning a particular thing. You are reading a particular thing. While reading, uh, you are writing, right? So while reading, your mouth is activated. Then while you are reading, you are writing, right? So then mouth is activated, your hand is activated, and your eyes are activated, and your ears are activated. So obviously, four things are really activated. And that is highlighted by the sensory stimulation theory. So that's a kind of abstract conceptualization. Whatever the thing that you are learning need to be conceptualized simply, right? So then you can understand very clearly what the thing that you are learning, right? So you can simply apply and conceptualize the thing that you are learning. And reflective observations. Then what in the next thing, the preference to learn by watching and examining different points of view to achieve an understanding. Reflective observation, simply preference to learn by watching and examining different points of view to achieve an understanding. Right? Simply, if something is learned, you can have different perspectives on it. Different perspectives on it in the sense that, let's say you are reading something. You are talking about Maslow's hierarchy of need theory. For example, you are reading about Maslow's hierarchy of need theory. Then you can have, let's say, reflection, what you feel about it, and how that can be applied to other contexts, right? So rather than just merely reading about it, right? Rather than just merely reading about it, try to understand it by applying to different contexts. For example, Maslow's hierarchy of need theory have basically 5 stages, 5 steps to motivate a particular individual. Then you can simply apply to you, whether I'm uh, practicing this, whether the concept can be applied to me, whether this concept can be applied to the organization, whether this concept applied to a, let's say, a particular school, teachers in a school, right? So you simply, the concept need to be applied uh, to certain context, then try to understand how this is applicable and how this is really working in different contexts. So then obviously, then you can understand different perspectives of it, right? So different perspective, when you are able to understand different perspectives of a something, obviously your knowledge on that area is broadened and you really understand that area very clearly rather than just taking only one perspective, right? That is the reflective observation. Reflections in the sense that what you feel about it by applying the same context into different areas. What happened, the motivation theory applied to me, whether it is really applicable to me, whether really working for me, whether it is really applicable to me, and whether it is really applicable to the employee in a school, right? Uh, Whether it is really applicable to an employee in a garment factory, right? So likewise, you can simply the concepts, whether, for example, physiological needs is the first one discussed in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So whether try to understand how the physiological needs are provided. When the physiological needs are provided, how the individuals are motivated. Simply, you can ask this question from you, whether somebody, whether when I'm employed, uh, really what happens, whether this is happened to me, right? What highlights the theory? What is highlighted about this by this theory? For example, when I will be employed, I will be paid some amount. In that, whether I will be satisfied or whether I will be able to satisfy my physiological needs, as the theory says, right? Simply, you can take several perspectives by reading it. Simply, you can have a reflection in the sense that you simply apply to different context. You apply the thing that you are learning to different other contexts, right? That is reflective observation. Then active experimentation, preference for learning something by actually doing it and judging its practical value, right? Simply, but then simply you can apply the motivation theory to motivate somebody. For example, you can apply the theory to your housemaid or servant, for example. So then observe how she reacts to the things that you are providing as per the Maslow's hierarchy of need. You basically initially provided um, uh, physiological needs satisfied, right? Provided something to satisfy physiological needs, then esteem needs. Likewise, you can observe how she reacts to those you provide over the time. This may take some time rather than just merely spotting everything to 1 or 2 days. You can't do that, right? At least you have to spend nearly 5 to 10 years with her, right? So you can simply observe that. You can simply practice it. Right? So that's how you learn. Or simply you can say, suppose you are now students and you are learning the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you get passed out from the university, obviously you can practice it at the time of that you are doing your internships or maybe at your original jobs. Right? That is active experimentation. So really, concrete experimentation, abstract conceptualization, reflective observation, and active experimentation, all these uh, are the stages of Kolb learning cycle or experiential learning. Uh, and also, Kolb uh, identified 4 learning styles: convergent, divergent, assimilation, and accommodative. We have some other learning styles according to Kolb. Uh, Here, convergent, a combination of abstract conceptualization and active experimentation, that is thinking and doing, with focus on problem solving, decision making, and the practical of ideas. Some people are convergent learners. For example, when they are learning, see, this is something like WAC model. WAC model is the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, writing, and reading model, right? So only that is the basic model, and some other researchers have developed various other models based on that foundation, right? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and writing and reading method. So people categorized into different styles. Basic those 4 styles, right? Apart from that, we have all have identified several other learning styles which are similar to the basic model. One type is convergent style. In that, basically, people try to, in a learning activity, they try to think and do. Think is the abstract. Think in the sense that whatever the thing, that particular thing is learned, they think about it. And after thinking, they try to experiment it. So then they obviously learn on that thing. And divergent, feeling and watching, obviously. A combination of concrete experience and reflective observation. Some people feel it and watch it, emphasize imagination and awareness of values and the ability to generate alternative course of actions. Right? So then some people feel it while reading, while learning something, feel it and watch it. Watch it in the sense that they simply try to observe or visual type of things, try to highlight something or try to make it a flow diagram, make the thing that you are reading into a flow diagram or maybe sketching out, right? So maybe sometimes you need to watch it in a, let's say, in a visual format, like you just go to the YouTube and try to find a video on that, right? So you feel and watch it. Is that divergent? And assimilation, thinking and watching, again, a combination of abstract conceptualizations and reflective observation that stress inductive reasoning, the integration of this disparate observation into an explanation and the creation of theoretical models. That is something advanced. Just watch it, how that can be done through a YouTube video. There are so many videos on this called learning styles. Try to understand it. And accommodative, again, feeling and doing. a combination of concrete experience and active experimentation. I think just rather than just explaining this, you better go to the because to explain it, I think I have some more time to explain the same thing. But I suggest you to base on the basic model, right? Concentrate only the basic model that is simply uh, understandable, the idea of learning styles. This is something, complex as the context, as the text appears. But when you go to the YouTube, obviously these four styles clearly explained in detail, right? So I suggest you to go to the YouTube and find some relevant videos. Just type Kolb learning styles. Then simply you can understand what it is, right? So rather than just explaining these words are something complicated to understand. And this is not one of my handouts, and somebody else has prepared this handout. I could have done it before to explain it more detail, but I thought using the same slides, but by reading these slides, I realized that these explanations are not enough to understand, because these are short sentences by which you can't understand what it is. I believe that, and I suggest you to refer the YouTube videos on the same content, and you will be able to understand nicely. And oh, in other words, you can ask simply from a LLM model, large language model. Um, then it will explain everything in detail, and you will be able to understand clearly rather than just reading about these slides. Right. So, and please remember, please concentrate on the thing that I highlighted before in this, right? So in the last latter part of the last lecture, the learning styles, I did show you some videos on that, and how to, and I dragged you to the sites that explains the assessment of learning styles, to check whether which category, which style that you are in. Simply, I believe you all have done at your home those exercises, and realize that which type of a learner that you are, right? So if you have understood that your which type of style that you are, obviously try to follow the same style in your every learning activities ever in the future, right? So then you will be able to successful. You will be able to be successful uh, in the future, right? So because you are learning based on your style, and knowing that style is very much important. That's why I took you through the uh, um, uh, through those assessments, and I did show you all these assessments, and to have kind of a experience on, or to know whether you are which category that you belong to, simply to understand your learning style, right? So I believe you all have understood your own learning styles, found your own learning styles, and then after that you can follow the same styles forever in the future. Uh, then you will be able to be successful, right? Now, learning strategies. Apart from the learning styles, you have to follow learning strategies. What are those strategies? Strategies are these the techniques that learners use to normally. Strategies are the techniques that learners use to, right? One strategy is rehearsing, right? So that is very simple. Rehearsing strategy. We'll take one by one. Uh, Rehearsal strategies for basic learning facts. Repeating items in a list. Simply repeating. repeating the thing that you are learning. For example, I'm repeating the words. If I'm repeating the words that I'm teaching, obviously you can simply understand. Right? Rehearsing is one strategy. Rehearsing is, or in other words, repeating. Right? And these are the examples how you can rehearse. Rehearsal, or in other words, uh, uh, practice or repeating, same meaning. Uh, Basic learning tasks, simply you can repeat the items. For complex learning tasks, you can underline text in an article, copying notes, or maybe you can extract. You can create, in nowadays, for example, you can create a YouTube video on the learning content, and you can draw a picture, you can draw an article, uh, you can develop a concept based on that, right? So in a complex task, by developing those kind of things, obviously you say obviously learn, right? Suppose, for example, this one you don't understand. What strategy that I can use? Because I asked you to go to the YouTube videos. That's the strategy I suggested to you. Because by watching a YouTube video, you will be able to understand very clearly rather than just by reading this. Or else I can suggest you to create a YouTube video by your own about this, called 4 learning styles. Create a YouTube video, create a video, not a YouTube, right? Create a small video that runs about 2 minutes on Kolb learning 4 styles, Kolb uh, 4 learning styles. So then to create that, you must write a script. You must find some pictures. You can find some informative, creative videos, video clips, right? So then by doing those things, simply you learn what it is, right? So that's an experiential learning. So simply rehearsing is that. Simply rehearse is that. Right? For complex, for studying, for understanding, for learning complex tasks, simply we can underline tests, or we can copy notes, we can extract the important concepts and try to make some videos on that, right? Or we can draw a picture, we can identify the connections and how it is, how the concepts are interconnected, right? So likewise, complex tasks can be identified by that kind of a strategy, right? So we normally use, simply I ask you to go to the video, find a video and watch. That's a strategy. This is a complex, I believe while reading, I believe these context, these texts, these writings are something like complicated to you, for you to understand. I felt that while reading, obviously, then I ask you to find a video in YouTube. So that's a strategy to learn. Oh, I ask you to find LLM and ask to explain this, what this is about, right? So that's a strategy, a rehearsal strategy. Then elaboration strategies for basic learning tasks, forming a mental image, elaboration strategies for complex learning tasks, taking notes, paraphrasing, or summarizing new material. Forming a mental image. Mental image is mind mapping. Mental image. You can imagine in your mind what it is. You can create a small picture about the thing that you are learning. Right? So that is simply called mind mapping. Mind mapping. If something is learned, the learning thing is mapped in your mind. as a picture. Simply what you understood by watching a film, whatever. Imagine that you are watching a film, right? You can remember the entire film from as it is from start to the end without losing any content. Why is that? Because you have images in your mind. The whole story is memorized because you have images in your mind. That is mind mapping, right? So one best strategy of learning is to mind map. The learning content is imagined or converted into images and that's stored into your mind. That's why I ask you to draw some pictures about something that is learned. For example, if you read a small paragraph, the paragraph content can be drawn in a picture. Or the paragraph can be converted, the idea in the paragraph can be converted into a picture. Right? So and that picture is imagined. That picture is stored into your mind very quickly because that's the wonder of your brain, because paragraphs are no longer memorized. Rather, the images are clearly memorized, incidents are clearly memorized, which is more efficient than than the paragraphs or the verbal stories, right? So when something is read, reading only is not enough to keep in mind. Reading only. But when you are reading something by imagining a particular story, what is highlighted in the reading text, obviously you create your own story in your mind. Or you simply, in other words, you mapped the story in the text in your mind. So obviously that memorizing capacity is very high. That's why a film is highly memorized than a text reading, right? So here, forming a mental image. Try to form a mental image for whatever the thing that you are reading, that you are learning. Try to form a mental image, right? Mental image is mind mapped. Simply, you can draw a small picture. If something is, let's suppose this one, you have all learning cycle is this. This step is, what is this? Convergent, divergent, convergent, divergent, and this one, and accommodative, right? So now create, this is a picture. And this is convergent, this is divergent. And what is convergent? Simply the idea is drawn by means of a picture, something like this. The idea of this content, what is the meaning of this divergency can be drawn by means of a picture, right? Let's say as this is the flower, right? So suppose the D means the flower, and this one assimilation, the idea of this assimilation can be drawn by a picture, right? Suppose this, and and an idea of the last thing is something like this. So then simply you can memorize whole thing as a picture. So that's the main idea, mind mapping, forming a mental image. And in the elaboration, taking notes, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing. So this is a very good strategy to understand something. Suppose I will ask you, I'm asking you to read a particular article, right? For example, I show you this one. This is, suppose this is the article that I'm referring to you to read, right? So this is the thing, suppose this is the content that I want you to learn, that I want you to learn, right? So this something explained here, and this is the thing that I want you to teach, right? So what I can do is simply, I can ask you to paraphrase these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Simply, I can ask you to paraphrase these 5 paragraphs. So for the paraphrasing, what you need to do, right? What you need to do in the paraphrasing, what you need to do? You need to read the content and understand it, and you need to write the same thing by your own words, not the words in the text, not by using the words in the text, right? So paraphrasing is simply something like uh, reproducing the content by your own words. Simply, in order to produce a paragraph by your own words, obviously you need to understand it very carefully. What the idea highlighted in the paragraph need to be written by your own words. That can happen, that is possible if you have understood the content clearly. So first, to do that, first you need to understand the content very clearly. Otherwise, you will write something else. Right? So that is elaboration by elaboration strategy for complex learning tasks. Right? So elaboration strategy. Elaboration. For example, I can give you an exercise now, right? For this, relating to this, I can give you an exercise. What is that? What is that exercise relating to this? Summarizing new material. I can ask you to summarize everything that you learned from the beginning up to this point. From the beginning in the sense that today, from the start, today, we started the lecture at 10:20, 10:10, and from that point afterwards, up to this point, what are the things that you learned? Summarize without seeing the note and the screen. What you understood, what you memorized from the content that I taught you during this half an hour, right? I can ask you to summarize and simply check whether how many of you have understood the content that I talked about or that I taught you during this period. And I can simply understand the level of your understanding and memory about the content that I talked about, that I taught to you. Right? So that is a strategy. So then I will realize that different people have caught or understood the content in different ways. Simply, we can demonstrate that. We can practice that. So then you will realize the wonder of learning. if I practice these type of things, you will realize sometimes you learn everything from the class itself. If I practice those type of things, but unfortunately, we have been given only 45 hours to teach many things. Unfortunately, we can't do those things. But individually, you can do all these. You can practice all these at your home. Because remember, you are the future HRD professionals. You may be lecturers. You may be trainers. You may be consultants. You may be teachers, or you may be trainers, or you may be resource persons for number of participants, different audiences. In that case, you need to convince the audience about the thing that you are talking about. You need to know about the audience learning patterns, and based on the low audiences learning patterns, you need to craft your delivery. You need to craft your talk. You need to craft your learning content or teaching content or the resource content that you are providing. So then only you will be able to successful. Then only you will be able to be popular, and you can have a brand your own. You can have a strong brand about you. Otherwise, people, based on that, you can earn money. Simply, you can earn money. As I am proudly saying that uh, anywhere that I'm any lecture that I'm supposed to deliver anywhere, from the first lecture, I can grab the audience from the words I'm talking about and from the teaching methodology or the methodology that I'm using to deliver my speech. And they are talking positively always. I have the experience because I'm spending now 18th year of my career, and I have the experiences, prior experiences when when I was talking about to a particular audience, and audience is really up positive on my talking and the methods that I have used, because I learned these things, because I'm using these strategies, styles, learning patterns, everything, right? So I learned these things, and I'm really practicing all these things as you are learning now. I have learned those things, and I have developed all these things. I have been developed based on these things, right? So please remember, you are future HRD professionals, and these things are being taught to you to practice those things, to apply those things in your future career endeavors, right? So please, I'm repeatedly saying, please use them. And these are very much more than enough uh, for your success. These are more than enough for your entire career success if you practice those things. But unfortunate thing is you don't get all these things that we are teaching. The syllabus that we are providing is really useful to be really successful in your future career endeavors. All the things that we are teaching through the entire syllabus are really helpful and are really useful to have a successful career in your life. But unfortunate thing is you don't. Only you are getting nearly 5%, less than 5% of the entire syllabus. That's the problem, right? So please practice all these things. And if you don't understand, try to understand using various other materials. Sometimes lecturer may not be successful in teaching. Not me, but others, for example. Uh, Try to understand the same learning content because you have so many enough resources. available nowadays in your hand, right? With the mobile phone, you can access anything that you want regarding these things. Simply, those are the strategies, right? Rehearsing, elaboration, and the next one, what is the third one? Organize, right? Organizing basic learning, organizing, grouping, or ordering information to be learned. Right? Simply a paragraph is given, and you can simply understand a pattern in the paragraph. And the identified pattern can be extracted by taking some notes. And you can pick some important concepts highlighted above. Right? So how you can do that? Suppose this is the paragraph that I have recommended to you. Right? So simply understand, try to understand what highlights about this paragraph. What is the main theme highlighted in this paragraph? What is the main theme? What is the main theme of this paragraph, of this entire paragraph? And what is the main theme highlighted in this? What is the main idea? Theme or idea? Idea. Right? Right? So here, what is the main idea of this paragraph? 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 And this paragraph says about A. And this paragraph is talking about B. And this paragraph is talking about C. And this paragraph is talking about D. And you can simply identify whether there is a connection between these A, B, C, D. What is the flow? And how these paragraphs are related. Whether A influence B, whether B influence C, whether C influence D, or whether D influences A. And simply understand the content by doing this kind of activities. That is organizing. Clear? See whether how many of you are doing out of this in your learning activity. Right? So now you may imagining that what the hell that you are doing in your learning activities rather than this. What the thing you are doing normally, just read the notes and cramming the notes, I believe. Right? So in order to have an effective learning, you need to do these things. I strongly believe that those, especially having A grades, more than A grades, definitely I assume that they are doing those things. All the first classes, they are doing. Otherwise, they can't get first classes. Still, those are having high marks leading to the first class in your batch, obviously, might have practicing all these things, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, right? So, but once done this, they can really know about the things they practiced. Those can be conceptualized. Uh, I did this one. That is the learning strategies that I used. I usually practice this. For example, one can imagine, one can think about, I have rehearsed. I normally used to rehearse, elaborate, organize, and comprehend the thing that I'm learning. I used to do this. That's nothing new. I'm doing this. Some might have thinking that, right? Some one of you may be thinking about this or perceiving that he or she is doing it, while the others may learn this that they are not doing. But for those this is not done, is instructed to use in your whole learning activities in the future. Then you can see the wonder of learning in your future endeavors. You can be really successful. Right. Organizational strategies for complex tasks, outline an article, creating a hierarchy of material, right? So hierarchy of material, as I told you, for this, suppose this is the article, this one, main idea, hierarchy. This one, first paragraph, in this basically, I have highlighted background, right? So in this basically background, in this basically current knowledge highlighted. In this gap highlighted on this area. And in this basically objectives, right? So this is the sequence of development article, right? So this is a research article that I have submitted, the role of interpersonal differences in career decision, a meta-analysis and meta-analysis structural equation modeling approach, right? So this is talking about career decision, interpersonal differences and career decision. So now background to this study given in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, what is the current knowledge on this on that area? Individual differences and career decision. What is the current knowledge? And what are the gaps? Right? So that's the flow, how we can develop the flow. Then reader must be able to understand this. By reading this, this reader can simply understand this is a paragraph, this is a background paragraph. And by reading, the reader can simply understand this is the current knowledge he is highlighting. Then if you can understand all this, you really understood the article. What is highlighting? What is talking about? Right? What is being talked about? That is organizing. Then comprehension, self-questioning. 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 You can simply self-question about the content. What is highlighting about this in this paragraph? Whether it is related to some other related factors and how it is related, why it is related, why the author has written about this, right? So you can self-question and find answers to those self-questions. You need to find answers to those self-questions. Simply, you can, for example, you are reading this, a combination of abstract conceptualization. What does it mean, abstract conceptualization? You don't understand what it is. Then you go to the Google and ask, and you go to an LLM and ask, right? What is abstract conceptualization? Then you self-question, what is this? And you then, without going further, you then try to answer the question, that self-question. What is this? And then you stop reading the next part and go to the Google and find the meaning of it. And reflective observation, what is it? Why they have used this after this? Right? Those are the self questions. So then those self questions need to be answered, and those answers help you to understand the content that you are reading. Clear? Sorry. Right. Then effective strategies increase the alertness, relaxation, finding ways to reduce test anxiety. Right. So those are the strategies that you can follow in a learning activity. Right. Then perceptual preferences. Individuals have preferences for the sensory channels that they use to acquire information. Winnie James and Michael Gilbreth suggest 7 primary perceptual preferences in learning: print, visual, oral, interactive, tactile, kinesthetic, olfactory. Those are again perceptual preferences are the synonyms for what you call these learning styles. Some prefer printing materials, reading and writing. That is simply visual learners, right? So those two comes under visual learning, such as graphs and charts. Then auditory learning here, the same thing, right? So these people highlighted the same idea, VAC model, right? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and reading and writing. This model is highlighted by another way by these people, right? These two visual, then oral apart from this, because auditory is listening kind of things, but oral, auditory, listening, both same thing. Then interactive, discussing, asking questions. Tactile, that is hands-on experience, that is kinesthetic, right? Kinesthetic. Psychomotor, the same meanings: role playing, physical activities, the synonyms, right? Different perspectives of the same thing, right? For example, you talked about this different perspectives at here. We talked about this reflective observation, right? So when you draw, when you hold this, when you refer these things with this, obviously you can understand very clearly what is back model. Tactile, tactile is kinesthetic, manipulative is kinesthetic, hands-on, those verbs are further explained, such as touching, hands-on, experiencing, manipulating, tactile. All these are synonyms for kinesthetics, right? And again, kinesthetic have been given and by another name. This is known as psychomotor. Psychomotor is kind of a practical thing, right? So though all these are synonyms for kinesthetic, right? So this is nothing new, right? Don't try to cram these things, just to have a rough idea about VAC model, learning styles. In other words, perceptual preferences in learning, that is individual preferences in learning, that is in other words known as learning styles of individuals, right? So all these are learning styles. And apart from that, learning strategy is given. And this must come first. I think this should come at this point, not this finding must come uh, must come to this point, right? So which means that this is learning preferences or style. Make it correct in your slides as well, right? So this come first. Then after that, learning strategies. Learning strategies. learning strategies done, right? So then after learning strategies, 3 slides. The slide placed here must be dragged into this after the learning styles, since this is related to the learning styles, right? This slide. Now talking about the learning theories. Learning theories. And that is in my YouTube channel. I ask you to go to that and watch, right? So simply you can watch that. I have given it in the LMS. FMF. Right. Today we are discussing about topic 5. Is it? And last time we were discussing about both learning and HRD continued. And this must come to at this point. 2 and 3 again. Learning and HRD continued. And third one come to this point. And this must come right. HRD, second lecture, third lecture. And you can watch this. So basically, we are supposed to discuss about individual learning today. The goal is to change the knowledge or attitudes through learning. For example, if you have already learned something, so our main target is to change our behavior, knowledge or attitudes on something through learning. Basically, through learning, right? So I'm not going to repeat this. You can watch this that has been given already. And I'm going to wind up the session, and I suppose that you don't leave your seats, because this video runs about 1.5 hours, and watch this at this time and make your own notes by learning. And I will give you some questions by next time, and this is a time to watch this video. Right. Any question from your side? And that is already given. Right. So that the link has been already given. This is the Zoom. This is the lecture, right? And today's lecture, along with this video, is given. This might be 4, and this lecture might be 3, right? So this is the 4th lecture, and the one I'm conducting now will be uploaded to YouTube channel as well. Then that will be 3rd, and this one will be 4th. Right? Done. Anything you want me to know? Right? I can stop the session, but don't leave your seats and watch the rest of the things, because that is part of your lesson, learning uh, principles or learning theories. What are the learning theories? I will give you some questions next time. Is it possible? Is that the way? Is that a good suggestion? No, you want me to do the same thing again through this?